I'm Jasmine Bibb, and this is To the Woman It May Concern, the podcast, a show where real women talk about real life, one letter at a time. High-performing women navigating identity, purpose, and becoming deserve a safe space, one without the pressure to have it all figured out. Each episode, we explore the wisdom, the wrestle, and the wonder of becoming the woman you were always meant to be. Because I believe every woman has a letter in her, one that could help someone else feel seen, heard, or simply not alone. So, let's get into it. Hey there. So, welcome back to another episode of To the Woman It May Concern, the podcast. I'm your host, Jasmine Bibb, and it's been a while since it's just been you and I having a conversation. So, the last solo episode I did was episode 1 when I introduced the concept of To the Woman It May Concern. And so, since then, we've had a number of really, really extraordinary, powerful, just awesome women come on the show and share their letters. And I am so grateful that I am able to say that based on the fact that this was a to test list item for me, that I have made it to, I believe this is episode 8. And so my thought is that there will be a break at some point. So this will be like a season 1 before we get into a season 2. But for now, I'm just super grateful that this to test list item is going so well and is getting so much traction, and it is really resonating with so many women. I'm really grateful for that. So I continue to do the work, and y'all, it is not easy trying to figure out what this is going to look like, but I'm just going to keep doing, and in the process thinking and moving forward and knowing that my steps are ordered. I just got to step, right? So anywho, so today's episode is just me. And the thought is that, I'm inviting these women and they're reading their letters because that's what it's about. Every woman has a letter. Um, but remember, this all started with me sharing my letters with you in the form of the blog. And so, as I'm always super excited to have other women join me for a conversation in their letters, I still got some letters in me too. So, with that being said, as we round out season 1, you'll be hearing from me specifically and solely on my own a few more times because I really enjoy the letters that I have to share and the topics that resonate with me and the therapy and the clarity and the peace that letter writing gives to me. When I'm able to put my thoughts on paper and make them come together in a way that I know will resonate with my tribe. And so, with that being said, I will get into today's letter that I have for you. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit about where that letter comes from, my thoughts, and maybe there's some ways in which I can impart some wisdom when you think about the gifts of my journey that may help you too. So, with that being said, to the woman it may concern, I once read a devotional that said, there comes a time when our faith is tested deliberately by God, not so we will be overcome, but so we might grasp the validity of our faith and know it to be real. From God's hands comes the cumulative exam, designed to reinforce our learning about Him and His work in our lives. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, no matter what life throws my way. That belief, though shaky at times, is how I try to live. It's the advice I give daily, and it's what holds me in the moments when I can't connect the dots. and nothing makes sense. I remember having a conversation with a peer once about an employee who had been let go. As we rounded out the conversation, I said, "She'll be okay. Everything happens for a reason." Now, let me clarify. I didn't say that to be flippant. I truly believe that her permission slip had been signed, the page was being turned, and God had something else he was ready to do with her. The response from my peer, because I say it so often, he told me he wished I'd stop saying that. My initial reaction was offense. Why would he say such a thing? I was speaking from a place of faith, from experience, reminding him that God is good and won't allow anything to happen to his children to their detriment, no matter how scary, sad, hurtful, unexpected, uncomfortable, or confusing a situation might be. It would have been easy to judge him for trying to silence the way I express my faith, but instead, I realized he was the one wrestling with something. Somewhere along the way, something had happened that left him unable to see the reason. He couldn't see the forest for the trees. But here's what I know and what I've learned to understand better by and by. When I look back over my life, you can't tell me that God hasn't been connecting the dots. You can't tell me he isn't using every experience to reinforce our learning about him and the way he works. Let me tell you why I will always stand in the truth I shared that day and why I won't be easily shaken from that belief. Childhood. There was a prestigious school I wanted to attend, and I was denied admission. I stayed where I was until my parents decided to pull me out of the school I was attending and send me to Catholic school, a decision I was not thrilled about at the time. But if that door hadn't closed, I wouldn't have made the lifelong friends I have today. I wouldn't have gone on to attend the high school I did, where I thrived and truly found my voice. Had I been accepted into that prestigious school, I would have blended in. I don't believe I would have built the muscle to stand out and lead. And if that hadn't happened, I likely wouldn't have ended up at the college I did, which through professors, love, and life experiences played a huge role in placing me here today before you. Young love. We've all had that young love, the kind you were into and your parents couldn't stand. I'll spare you the full story of my teenage love affair, but I'll say this. I've now got a strong nose and sharp intuition and a whole list of questions ready for when Raquel gets to that age. And I've got some solid advice to give her because I've lived it. Career. I've been fortunate to have mentors and sponsors who've helped me grow professionally. But I once found myself in a season where I wanted to quit. No backup plan, no savings, nothing lined up. I had a boss who was impossible. I cried after work most days, stayed up late working on projects with quick turnaround times, was belittled, and had to go to therapy to cope with the anxiety it caused. I'd made up my mind after returning from vacation, I was going to give my 2 weeks notice. Y'all, but God. I came back from that trip, opened my email, and discovered that my department had been restructured. I was no longer reporting to that individual. And a few years later, I landed an executive leadership role. Let me tell you, every, and I mean every, moment that made me want to quit prepared me to lead. The high expectations, the pressure, the details, the people, that difficult season sharpened me for success. There are so many other moments, relationships, closed doors, unexpected detours that prove to me everything really does happen for a reason. Am I always able to connect the dots right away? No. In fact, if I'm being honest, I'm currently in a season of uncertainty and wonder. I'm saying the words I believe, but I can't make sense of them right now. Still, when I find myself in that space, I remind myself of everything I just told you. And I keep going because I know that when the time is right, it will all make sense. Here's the best part: it always, and I mean always, makes sense in the end. That's why the word tells us, be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. That's why he tells us not to lean on our own understanding. That's why we're told to be transformed, not conformed to the patterns of this world. Sometimes you'll have to encourage yourself, but without fail, I always reach the day when I say, ah, mm, it makes sense now. If you're in a season where you can't see the forest for the trees, I hope this helped. And if it doesn't help right now, that's okay. Just know one day it will. With faith, Jasmine. So, guys, that's my letter for you for today. And so I want to spend a little time talking about why this letter, where it originated from, and just kind of all that transpired as a result of this letter. So, this letter was written for an event I was actually asked to speak at, which was pretty cool because anybody who really knows me, and maybe you've gotten an opportunity to know me through this podcast, to know that I'm on a mission. And as a part of that mission, one of the things that I want to do with my life is public speaking. I want to encourage women. I want to have conversations. I want to be invited into spaces where those who need the gifts of my journey most are seated. I want the woman who is just like me and just like you, who needs these letters, to be in the audience, listening to the encouraging word, listening to the relatable experiences, listening to my honesty and my transparency to hopefully keep going. And so, being that that is one of the things I'm really passionate about, like, I enjoy it. I do it a lot for my day job. When we think about the different conferences and events that we host for clients and potential clients, I've had some really great opportunities to be on some really big stages, and share my gift. And so, anyway, back to what I was saying. So I was asked to speak at a women's event for a church. And it was like a ladies' night or a women's night event where women were asked to come and be encouraged and fellowship. And the theme around it was faith. And so I was asked to prepare um, some type of speech or some type of conversation or some type of keynote or words that spoke to faith. And so this letter is what I prepared for that audience. And so that day, it was a Friday. I went into that conversation with that audience, shared my letter. Um, and it was pretty powerful just to watch the reactions and the head nods and the laughs when you think about young love and childhood and just all of that. And from that letter, after I read that letter, something I've been working on as I think about the fact that I want to do more public speaking is, what do I have to offer someone who I believe I have a message for their audience? And so, what does that package look like? And so, for me, you guys know my signature. style is letter writing. And so there's the piece of what I do where I always start with a letter to my audience to kind of, create that connection and that touch point and really just show the human side of, hey, I'm going to get up here. You and I are no different. The difference is maybe I'm sharing a little more than you would have shared, or maybe the difference is public speaking is my thing and it's not yours. But anyway, so I get up, I do the letter for the audience, and then from there I share some takeaways. And then in this instance, I added a letter writing component to the audience. So uh, the takeaways that I shared with the women at that event was that God is always working, even when it doesn't make sense. Stand on what you believe, even when it's an unpopular opinion. Purpose often reveals itself in hindsight, and that bitterness and confusion are natural, but they aren't the end of the story. And so I went deeper on those specific takeaways and what I hoped women would walk away with in their back pockets and in their hearts. But from there, I had my signature colors for my brand. I had purchased some notebooks for women and some pens, and added a business card and handed those out to the women in the audience. And then I gave them letter writing prompts. And so, with the letter writing prompt, with the time that we had, I wanted them to write a letter. And so, the activity was, if you've come through something hard, reflect on it. Remind yourself how God carried you. And so that would be a letter for one of the individuals to reflect on something that they've come through and to remind them that themselves that God carried them. And then the other letter prompt was, if you're still in it, that's okay too. Speak life over yourself. Write the letter you need to read. And so my goal in doing that was to show those women just how therapeutic letter writing can actually be, and just how honest you can be with yourself with a pen and a piece of paper. Because I think there's some times where there are things that we need to say, but we don't know how people will react. It may seem out of character for us. It may seem too brash for something that people would like to hear come from our mouths. But when you have a pen and a piece of paper, and you're either talking to yourself or sharing your experiences or reminding yourself of something, there is so much power in that. And that is why I continue to push the thought that letter writing is such a powerful act of self care that we should all give a chance or an opportunity to see it move forward in our lives and blossom. And so I gave those women probably about 10, maybe 15 minutes to write the letters to themselves. And then I opened up the conversation to the audience and gave women who were interested the opportunity to come up and read their letter based on the prompt that they chose. And so, because I know not everyone likes public speaking. And I also know that sometimes when we think about the thought of letter writing and the goal of being transparent and raw and vulnerable, some people don't want to share, right? And that's okay. You don't have to share. That's not what it's about. But I wanted to give women the opportunity to share if they were interested and encourage each other and see that we are all more similar than we are different. And so the outpouring of women that decided to share their letters was so beautiful. Um, you had women who got up there and encouraged themselves and talked about the hard things or reminded themselves of how strong they were. You had women who were in the midst of something. One woman in particular, at the time when I read the letter for the event, the government changes and DEI and people being laid off and the Department of Education, a lot of that stuff we were still in the midst of a lot of that uh, in society. And one of the women that got up there and read a letter, it was so beautiful, but it was so emotional. She was an attorney for the Department of Education, and she wrote a letter about how lost she was feeling. She had gone to school to do this work, and she was very intentional about the work that she was doing to help create change. And then to be told that she was no longer needed and to be let go, knowing that her work was important, was just extremely emotional for her. And it really had her questioning a lot. But what was so beautiful about that was the fact that she got up there, she shared, she cried, she was transparent, she was vulnerable, guys. She didn't have to do it, but she did. And it was the love that she received and the encouragement that she received from other women. I really think it helped her to feel seen. And although she cried as she read her letter, as we got into the rest of the evening, she was smiling and she was laughing. And so I really enjoyed that opportunity to pour into those women, but I also enjoyed the opportunity to take what I believe letter writing that is and it's the purest form of what it can be for us as individuals and other people and bring that to a place. And so that's kind of my spiel on how the letter came to be and where it was read and just kind of how it blossomed and kind of grew legs from there. I thought it was important to read on an episode of the podcast because although it touched those women in that room, I think there's an opportunity for that letter to touch all of you who are listening to this episode. Because I think between society and the things that are happening in the world, but the things that are happening with us as individuals, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, whatever the case may be, that reminder that everything happens for a reason is so important for us to remain grounded in. Because so often I think it's so easy for us to say, why are all these things happening around me? And oftentimes we can think it's negative things. But what I'm learning and what I'm trying to embrace, and it's not always easy, is that of the things that are happening, it's for something. It means something. So if I'm in a tough season where I'm kind of trying to figure out, as you guys know, where I want my career to take me next, there are some days and some things and some experiences and some people that I encounter in my day to day that just, it really, I don't know if bothers me is the right word, but it really it doesn't necessarily always sit right in my spirit. Some days require me to be a warrior. Some days require me to, not really focus on the things that matter most to me when I think about how my time is spent or the impact that I'm making, or maybe the things I see daily that are negative that I wish I could change or I wish I could call attention to in a healthier way. When I feel all of those things in the course of a day, it would be so easy to say, like, what the heck is going on? Has God forgotten about me? Why am I in this space? What is happening here? But I've really learned that when I take that more positive approach of, okay, I'm either going to see this scenario or this person somewhere again down the line. I got to figure out a way to master or overcome or grow the skills necessary so that when this person or this situation happen again, I know how to navigate it. And so it often feels like the moments that are the hardest are like a testing ground for us to figure out how we pivot, how we react, how we respond, how we move. And I think oftentimes, probably 50-50, we get it right sometimes and sometimes we don't. But I know that when the heat is turning up and I find myself in situations that feel unbearable, oh, I know God is cooking. I know that he is trying to prepare me for where I want to go and where he wants to take me. And I think that when we look back on all of the instances in our lives where things have felt tough, where things have felt like there would be no end, where things felt like we weren't going to make it, we can also now look forward, be thankful for those experiences, no matter how difficult they may have been, and realize that they help shape us as the people that we are today in whatever capacity, whether it be how we trust people, rather it be how we take care of certain personal matters. Everything that we go through, past tense, and our current lives, present tense, there's a breadcrumb or there is a nugget or there is a leftover that we can view as a positive. And so that day when that peer, that coworker of mine made the comment, it made me feel like they didn't see that everything happens for a reason because they choose not to take the positive of the experiences that they've had and say that something was happening for them and not to them. And so I think that it's important as I kind of wrap up this episode. Obviously, it's short because it's just me, and I just wanted to share a letter and share my thoughts. Um, it's just important, guys, to know that this is building us for something. The things that we endure, should we choose to be intentional about our observations and our awareness of what is happening around us, these are truly gifts of our journey, rather it be for us to make us stronger, or better yet, for what we can do for other people. For me, that's huge. You know, in my day to day work, people will come and ask me questions about company related things. But you'll also have people who will come to me and we'll just have conversation about how to navigate certain instances, conversations, workplace scenarios, etc. And I love it. I love those conversations more than I love my actual day-to-day work because it's giving me the opportunity to share my experiences with other people or the things that I've been through and help them, rather it be to watch out for something, to overcome something, or simply give them food for thought. And so, although everything happens for a reason as it pertains to us as individuals and the lives that we live and the things we're going through, I think we also, I don't know, you may not feel the same, but I feel like I have a duty from those everything happens for a reason moments to kind of take notes on what the reason was and to pass along the goodness that came, the lessons learned that came from those moments. And so, with that being said, I would challenge you or encourage you, as maybe the more positive word. I would encourage you that if you're in a season of doubt or confusion, where you may be unclear about some things, reflect back on those moments in your life where maybe you felt a similar feeling in the past. And how did those moments pan out? And what did you learn from those moments? And how do you use those lessons learned today that could potentially help you either remain encouraged in the midst of your current storm or help someone else feel encouraged in the midst of their storm? And maybe you're not going through something current state, but I would just encourage you in general, even if you're not, reflect on those moments from a gratitude perspective to say, woo, God delivered me. Thank you, Lord. And here's what I learned. And here's how I'm applying it to my life. And I can't imagine had I not gone through those experiences or that experience where I would be today. I'm sure you'll find something. I'm sure you'll find something. So, guys, that's the episode for today. Thank you for joining me. As always, if you have a letter, and I've got some resources coming in the coming months. I'm not sure if it'll be season one yet or season two, but for those who are maybe interested in joining me for an episode, but maybe just aren't quite sure where to start as it pertains to a letter or their approach or their experience that they want to talk about, I'm in the process of creating some resources that I hope will help encourage you to raise your hand. So, if you are interested in reading a letter on an episode of To the Woman It May Concern the podcast, I can be reached at hello at oamcollective.com. So that's hello at oamcollective.com. You can also follow me on social media at the Overachiever Mom on Instagram. Uh, Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast. We're available, or I'm available, should I say, on all platforms. So that's Apple Podcasts, that's Spotify, that's Substack, you wherever you get your favorite podcast, YouTube as well. So I hope you guys are doing well. I thank you once again for listening to another episode of To the Woman It May Concern, the podcast. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.